You are listening to the Innovating Cannabis Podcast, where you will meet entrepreneurs, cultivators, scientists, doctors, and inventors in the cannabis industry.
I'm your host, Pam Schmiel. In addition to producing and hosting this show, I'm a freelance writer and editor for the Cannabis Industry Journal. What started out as growers gathering at the Big Sexy Brewery in Sacramento, California, to talk shop and share knowledge, grew into a collaboration among cultivation experts who went on to launch PowrHouse, an R&D cultivation facility designed to test the commercial viability of new genetics in nutrient lines. PowrHouse is highly data-driven, tracking every R&D project and sharing insights with cultivators, such as which cultivars perform best in specific conditions and with specific nutrient inputs. Our guest is co-founder Sergio Picazo. He walks us through their operations, partnerships, approach to data collection, and the importance of having a tissue culture program. Let's welcome Sergio to the show. I just thought, if you could just start out telling us, what your background is, and then we'll go into this really cool, I love this whole project or this whole thing that you're doing with the Connect community, and then with PowrHouse, we'll go into that. But if you could just tell us like who you are,
Great.
where you came from, and that kind of stuff, and where you are.
Well, sure. Well, thank you, Pam. My name is Sergio Picazo. I'm the co-founder of PowrHouse and the founder of the Connect community. I've been in the cannabis industry since 2016 professionally. And back then I started off in a nursery format. So in the Prop 215 days, the medicinal days, I was part of a group that had a nursery in Sacramento, California. And that was my crash course into the industry itself. I've been a consumer since I was a teenager, but the true love and passion for genetics is really what drew me into the industry itself, and specifically about how genetics correlate to experience, just like the same way that food and drinks do with us as humans, right? It's a bonding agent, and that's something that I've always had instilled in me since a young age. I'm first generation immigrant from Mexico, so my parents raised me with family and love and food. And so it was always a cultural abundance of love through food. And I always found that cooking was something that I wanted to get into. So I did right out of high school. I went to the culinary program at DBC, which is in the East Bay area of California. Really good program. And it gave me a lot of insight in regards to flavor profiling and recipe building and not how to use a knife, right? So knife skills and the way that you cut something will impact your palate and the way you flavor taste, and all these different pairings come along with that. Let's fast forward and, not going through my whole history and background, but I went from culinary to real estate to commercial truck industry, which gave me some background in engineering, and then to hospitality, supply and distribution. So all of these different industries that I've worked through have built this character that I am today in the cannabis industry, which allows me to showcase my talents and being able to bring commercial solutions, right? I don't like selling anything. I think sales, you get turned off from a sales approach. I like to present solutions, and that's what you saw at NJ BizCon last week, was the Connect community putting educational panel discussions together to share information. And it all came back from genetics, right? Going back to the nursery, that showed me a level of transparency that I want to give shout out to Kevin Jodry, because up in Garberville, his Wonderland Nursery was somebody that we were sourcing genetics from, and Kevin was always very helpful in the sense of sharing. Right. So that really showed me something special about the genetic space. And, breeders take their IP seriously. And this was something that I saw from a tissue culture perspective, working with breeders and nurseries. That's what intrigued me, was a distribution model that had full transparency behind it with cleanliness, right? So that's where tissue culture and the different breeder selections came into play, which allowed me to really go all in. And in 2017, when Prop 64 passed, the previous nursery organization that I was with didn't make the transition to 64. So I said, okay, well, let's put together a team and let's assemble this thing to do it the right way. And so I did. I didn't have any investors. I sold my house, sold my car, liquidated my 401k, and funded the build out. And so that was something that I truly believed in, because I understand the nuance of the gap in the industry, and that was trust and transparency in the genetic space. So just the preamble before we started this discussion, your focus on genetics is absolutely where I would guide anybody to getting into this whole this whole platform of the industry itself. Everything's going to be fundamentally around the different genetic profiles. And I always like to look at it as a charcuterie board of flavors, right?
Mhm.
Fruit, floral, fuel, earth, savory, whatever it is, you can find something. And that's what us as curators and genetics, um, we'll just call them validation specialists, right? That's what we're doing at PowrHouse. We like to work with a bunch of the world-class breeders to validate their seeds. We find the keepers, we put them through the validation process so we can scale those around the world. And that's really where we can start to build in the consistency of experience for the consumer, right? And that's really a big thing that the consumer behavior is a bit challenged with because they're still going off the indica sativa hybrid. You and I both know that everything's been hybridized so much in a good way, right? I think there's a lot of truth behind flavor profiling and why these intentional breeding projects exist. And for us, we're looking for flavor tied with experience and how to usher somebody towards that based on aroma, because the nose knows. So I'll pause here for a second because I know that was kind of a long-winded version of what I do and what and where this industry for me started with, but it always comes back to genetics and how we're going to continue to evolve from genetics.
Yeah, I definitely want to get into like the two organizations or your business is Powerhouse and then the connected community. But you mentioned that like there was a need for transparency in genetics, and what do you mean by that? Like, is there just people who are coming in and kind of willy-nilly just saying they're doing breeding and genetics, or what are you saying there?
That's a great question because I'm going to answer that two ways. Number one, anybody can make seeds. Anybody can reverse a female, throw that pollen onto another collection of mother receivers, but it takes true breeding to be able to identify certain markers or traits that you're looking for the intention of that outcome, right? These are all sisters, not twins. And so being able to find that unique sister of the progeny, this is really where you start to pay attention to people's breeding stock, right? Who actually has the legitimate OG Kush, who actually has the legitimate lemon tree, so on and so forth. This is where you start to pay attention to people's journeys and their projects along the way. And that's why there's a level of respect for a lot of the world-class breeders that are out there still doing the things that they are doing today, and why we choose to grow some of these seeds, right? There's a lot of space in the seed making business, but it always comes back to trust and transparency. And that's what I was referring to as which breeders actually have the right cut to make that project. Right. Anybody can say that they crossed something, but did they actually have that actual parent plant? So that's one. The second is the actual validation behind the breeder selection, and this is what intrigued me about Node Labs collaborating with Kevin Jodry. Was Kevin was the keeper of all these special elite cuts that breeders had passed along to him for safekeeping and for distribution when appropriate, and that's really what I was referring to. Was that is the actual Royal Kush #7 from Mandelbrot. That is actually the OGKB Girl Scout cookie, right? These are things that I truly saw and appreciated about Kevin's approach, which again inspired me and molded my framework around the transparency model. So when I started Cultivated Genetics in 2018 out of Sacramento, again, it took us about a year and a half to do the build out, then licensing and all that. Another story for a different day, but really that's irrelevant. It took us 2 years to get to 2020 when we actually had our business open. And so the legitimacy around all the breeder cuts that we had through our menu came from tissue culture. So the transparency model of what Node Labs had already started amplifying and using this novel technique of meristematic tissue culture, not nodal tissue culture, because that's just a surface scrub. That's not really remediating any sort of pest, or I'm sorry, any diseases that are systemic. So meristematic tissue culture with the breeder verified cut in a model where I can source Gen Zero tissue culture plantlets as my mom stock and keeping that trust and transparency along the way and making sure that the breeders had their royalty payment as well. That was something I was proud of, right? So we knew that the breeder can get into this legal market through the marketing, through the collaboration, through the clone sales of cultivators that wanted to grow something legitimately of what it was. And so going back to the whole, transparency model, that's what inspired me, to go all in, to liquidate my life essentially, right? And I was in traditional corporate America for 10 years at a hospitality supply distribution company, which I specialized in field sales, right? So field sales people. I managed a very professional team. I was very proud of that because it was a team of individuals that operated their own business within their territory. And that was really cool because I got to see how people organize themselves. And so my passion was digital organization because I grew up playing video games. I was
Mm.
born in the 80s, and so Sega Genesis, Nintendo, PlayStation, like I was a gamer. And so technology was nothing new for me. It was more so a way of life. And being able to utilize technology to stay organized is what I empowered my sales team to do so they could be more effective walking into your place of business. You're busy, you don't have a lot of time to talk to me, but if I'm walking in with the solution, I'm going to mention something mindful about your property because these were hotels that my team was going in and talking to. There's a lot of product solutions out there, but what is it uniquely identified to your property? For example, I'm going to give a quick reference because this plays into how genetics and cultivation really come out to play for my narrative today. The property has a bunch of different hotel ratings from whatever platform you name it. You can go on there and get a hotel rating review. So I always went to the 0 and 1 star or the low rated reviews and identified what those constant problems were. So
Mm.
whether it was cleanliness or maybe the inadequacy of the technology upgrades, like no chargers for your iPhone or Bluetooth capability, whatever it was, I always saw something that I can walk in with a very kind and candorous response with, here's a solution for your entrance mat. I noticed as I was walking in that it was really, it was pretty dirty. And that's the first presentation of somebody's impression of your property. Here's a custom quote for a nice 4x6 entrance mat. And by the way, it's got the logo on there too. So just when you're ready for something for a quick upgrade, there's a minor solution, but it really left an impact rather than going in and trying to sell something. I'm trying to help you. And that's the same methodology we take today at PowrHouse is specifically we're trying to help cultivators level up. Because in this day and age, all these emerging markets are looking at California, they're looking at Michigan, they're looking at Arizona, the mature markets that have been here for a moment and seeing what are these guys doing to specifically stay relevant. Well, in Sacramento, we're in probably one of the most competitive marketplaces in the earth, specifically because District 6 in Sacramento has over 2.5 million square feet of indoor canopy in our district alone. It's insane how many cultivators are coming out of here. Cam, Alien Labs and Connected, Blueprint, Preferred Gardens. We're all in this little pocket. So the competitiveness of all the bulk buyers coming in to shop, they know who's growing the heat. They know whose prices are what and who's having a good or bad downturn. And, I'm not singling out any brands. I'm just saying like we have a high concentration of highly respected brands in the industry that are respected around the world. So connect community, right? This is a solution platform. We're all cultivators. We bumped into each other, whether it was at Indoor Sun Hydro, picking up some supplies, or we're going to the local craft brewery. Big Sexy was our neighborhood brewery, which was really cool because they always had these new flavors and they welcomed the cannabis community. And so it was really cool that I was able to say, hey, on your guys' day off when you're closed this Tuesday night, once a month, I'd like to get people together here and just to have a session, right? Close the doors. Let's, keep it secure because obviously there's some challenges with consumption and in places of business. So it was a private event. We're all good. And all the cultivators that were getting off work at, 3, 4, or 5 p.m. would come and congregate at Big Sexy Brewery. And so this evolved into challenges, sharing of the challenges. So that's really what empowered everybody to say, "Oh my goodness, like I'm dealing with the same problems you are, whether it was environmental swings or root aphids or weak genetics, or maybe this nursery keeps delivering me plants with bad things happening, whether it's pest pressure or viroid pressure. And I'm a nursery, so I was the first person to be like, "Come, let's talk." Let's figure this out together because here's what I'm doing to maintain my level of cleanliness. First off, this is my partner, Node Labs, verified, legit genetics coming out of tissue culture. Now, here's what I'm doing to keep my nursery clean. So I shared my clean practices, sterilization protocol, my monthly testing on every single mother plant through my flora DNA, right? So I was extremely transparent in the manner that I was conducting business so that when people paid for clones, I actually had the highest price point in the nursery space for quite some time, and I don't say that as a gloat. It's more so these are the things that we're doing to increase our cost so that you have a better product solution. That's all I had to do was just showcase the solution, and people trusted these relationships. So the Connect community was really just an evolution of all these cultivators coming together, and then the manufacturing partners got involved. Hey, I heard you guys are having meetups with owner operators and cultivation in your in your area. Can we join? I said, actually, that would be really cool. Like people typically leave early because they got to get home for dinner, right? They're tired, they're hungry. Can you bring a food truck? Can you sponsor a food truck to come through and maybe pick up the bar tab? I'm sure everybody would really love that and appreciate it. That's exactly what happened. So the
Wow.
evolution of manufacturing partners that wanted to say, all right, these we got the community together. Cool. And that evolved into problem sharing and solution evolution. So that's really what these panel discussions started from. And it was really special and organic the way it all kind of formulated because we were always like at the bar top and just chopping it up, and this side of the bar couldn't hear what this side of the bar was talking about, but everyone was chopping it up about something. And then at one moment the bartender came up to me, he's like, hey, that that part of the table or that group over there wants to hear what you guys are talking about. Could you speak into this microphone?
Wow, so much to unpack, actually.
Yeah.
So, okay, so I would just want to stay with the structure so everybody understands. So you started this, it grew organically, this connected community, and that's still there today. And then it turned into panel discussions, and you're
Yep.
kind of keeping the whole community alive. And then,
Right.
and PowrHouse was already, you had already launched it, no, no. What did you launch in 2018?
Okay, so cultivated genetics, that was the nursery that I started in Sacramento.
Oh,
So again, it evolved from the Prop 215 medicinal nursery.
okay.
That group shut down. I started cultivated with some partners and funded the build out. And so this is where, again, I don't know anything about raising capital. I wasn't interested in trying to get investors because that scared me. I don't want to owe somebody money in a new industry. Like that's not my thing. So anyways, I went all in, there was a lot of love and support from the family. And that's really where, it evolved into trust because I'm a relationship style of business manager, right? I don't like to sell anything. It's more so these are the things that we offer for solutions and here's how we use these. And whether it's cultivation technique, product solutions, or if it's genetics, it's all the same thing. It's about helping you. And and I think that's really where we're at today is you're starting to see the gatekeepers are going away. It's those that can display competency through educating are the ones that are actually building more narrative of business opportunity. And that's what we're doing on a global scale. We're sharing information at a global level so that people can trust and rely upon the things that we're talking about. So, of course, you're going to see a Grove bag come into play because we know the technology works because we're showing people how it works. And this is the big part around smokability, which I believe you were part of that panel as well, in the audience. And that's an evolution of conversations that I'm able to get from global perspective on. So the structure of cultivated genetics. It was a nursery, and again, I mentioned Node Labs, which was my genetics tissue lab or tissue culture lab partner, where I was sourcing genetics from. And I was blessed with an opportunity to join the Node Labs team for a period of time as the chief products officer and the president of compound genetics. So Node had acquired compound genetics, and the goal was to launch it in different markets with the retail flower program, and that's what I did. I came in, I joined the team, and cultivated kind of worked synergetically right there with Node Labs. So all the pheno hunts and the selections that were commercially validated made it to the nursery so we can propagate at scale for the commercial cultivators. And so this model really was special because I got a lot of exposure not only to the tissue culture world but to the genetics, breeding practices, and just overall commercial validation. Right. So this is something that is it's a term thrown around pretty regularly, but I mean to what we do at PowrHouse now from a scale of transparency and trackability, I'll get to that a little bit later in the conversation. But Node, this was such a fun project specifically because I saw how to organize myself in so many different variables coming through. But at a global level, compounds well known. So being able to launch a breeder flower program in that manner, it was special. I learned a lot through that process. And let's fast forward because when the market shifted and all the candy wave was going on, the challenge of a nursery was to bring in validated genetics that was verified through the breeder. Then it goes through the TC process, which is minimally about a year. to get a cultivar initiated, meristematically cleaned, triple viroid assay to make sure that it's not infected when it goes out of the lab into production. That takes at least a year. Then it takes a few months to get the plant actually out of the gel and raised for propagation. So let's just say that the timing of the market shift with all the candy wave, it didn't it deflated the nursery model because it was specifically around I can't just bring in random cuts and start propagating them, even though that's what the market was asking me for. Well, that's not my narrative. We're not just going to pull genetics in just because it's what's popular. It's got to go through this cycle to make sure that there's trust and transparency. So that went against our model. So unfortunately, we saw the tides returning, and ultimately, I eventually ended up closing the nursery end of last year in 2024 because we couldn't sustain the demand for the candies and we didn't have them in the menu yet. So it was a tough decision, but then in the meantime, I was also looking at the fact that PowrHouse was born. The Connect community got us all together, and all the partners that are involved in the Connect or in PowrHouse were part of the Connect. So we always bumped into each other. We all had our own experiences and shared similar horror stories, I guess is what you call them, right? This is a very tough industry, and not everybody has the mental capacity to go and be resilient in this space. So reputations precede you in this industry, and I pride myself on integrity, and truly where we're going in this space is to help more cultivators try to stay in business. So the PowrHouse team that came together, you know, it starts with Matt Caputo. He's the founder of Terra International. He's a hydrostore distributor. So he's on the wholesale level and he brings in solutions and distributes them to hundreds of hydrostores. So Matt's got a lot of compelling solutions to talk about at scale because these are the things that go into the marketplace for commercial operators, right? Most cultivators don't know about new solutions unless they see it at the hydrostore or if the hydrostore even knows how to explain that solution. So Matt has got a super special talent on educating at his own level, right? And so when Matt was coming to the Connect events and he'd be listening to our conversations, and Kevin Crouch, another one of our founding members at PowrHouse, who you saw on two different panels, he was always sharing. He was one of our first panelists that was able to just really dive into organic inputs at scale. And we always thought he was crazy because he was mixing these organics, putting them through the drippers, and he operated a 1,400 light double stack facility in Sacramento, and each room had over 6,000 emitters. So to be able to put organics through your batch tanks and not risk clogging, we thought he was insane. But this is where Kevin was really special in his approach to cultivating. And I still view him as he sees the plant in such a different way that a lot of cultivators haven't really recognized because it's about plant health and immunity. How do you make the plant as healthy as possible, which creates the outcome of heavy yields with good quality, with good smokability? And that's really what really intrigued me about the way that Kevin used organic inputs at scale through mineral or using a salt mineral program mixed with it so you can still keep the cost of production low, but you're still giving that organic input potential for the genetics to express the way that you want them to. So Kevin was super transparent in the way that he did business and the way he conducted himself on panels. I'm like, that's the guy. And so Matt was always telling us, anytime you guys want to do an R&D facility, it'd be really special for the world to see. And we're like, what do you mean, man? He's like, dude, you guys are talking about such a high level. It's really hard to follow along if you're not in a cultivation. But he's like, me as a distributor, I need to understand what you're saying by seeing it. So if you guys ever want to do an R&D facility, let me know. And I was like, man, I'm blessed. Like that's super cool. Thank you. Let's fast forward a few months later. I actually got a call from an operation around the corner from my nursery that, hey, there's 300 lights available for rent. If you know anybody that wants to take them, I was at Indoor Sun Hydro with Kevin Vu, and Kevin Vu's a major industry player as well because not only does he own multiple hydro stores, but he's also the co-founder of Faven Under Canopy Lighting. And so Faven Under Canopy Lighting is amongst the elite in under canopy supplemental lighting solutions. And so Kevin always heard all these different challenges from cultivators coming into the shop. And so what does Kevin do? He sources the solution from China or whatever other area that the manufacturing plant originated in. So Kevin was the guy that always heard the problems and said, let me figure this out. So the way Kevin thinks is truly special because he's hearing it from so many different variations and he's able to assimilate, okay, here's the challenge, here's the solution that I think would work. Now let's try it. So Kevin was down for the R&D facility too because he's like, man, this is exactly what we need as a cultivation community. So we toured the spot. It was a really beautiful build. That's the current spot that we're at today in Sacramento. And so we walk the facility, call Matt. Hey Matt, you still interested in doing that R&D facility? I think we found a really cool place. And his first words were, "Let's fucking go. How much you guys need? Let's do this." And
Oh
so
my
there we
God.
go. PowrHouse was born. And so we started pulling in, some very quick interest from my next door neighbor Steve Squaglia, and Steve was. He was one of the original cultivators that got licensed in Sacramento. Steve is a legend in Sac and in the industry as well, because Steve has just done so much in the actual Sacramento cultivation community. And again, we shared walls. He was my landlord. He helped me out tremendously from a new business perspective. He'd been cultivating for decades, so it was really cool to have that relationship with Steve. I bumped into Steve in the parking lot right after we left that tour. Asked him, "Hey man, I think we're putting together this R&D facility around this corner." He's like, "Really? That sounds dope. Let me see. Like, sure, let me know what's up." And so that was the PowrHouse team. How it all formulated in a matter of a week. And so the idea and concept of what we were doing turned on like that because everybody knew what we wanted to do. And that was June of last year when we took over the facility, flipped on the lights 3 days later. And here we are in December of 2025. And PowrHouse is actually about to launch into retail in 2 weeks. So we're getting into retail finally, and it's been an evolution because we have so many different types of configurations of flower rooms. Two double stack LED 100 light rooms, two checkerboard 55 light rooms. So we're validating solutions at scale, right? This is not a little 12 light hobbyist garage grow. These are commercial facilities that we're putting solutions into and showing the world how we do it.
Wow. So basically, your team of like 5 or 6 people are all from different expertise from different areas. So you were saying, so one is like nutrients solution, right? Okay.
Yep. So the hydro store distribution. So Matt brings in a bunch of solutions. And he's also the founder of United Nutrients, which is our own curated recipe that we've put together with Matt. So United is our nutrient company. And then we have Kevin Vu from the Indoor Sun Hydro, so the hydro store world, and also solutions like under canopy lighting from Faven. And Kevin Crouch, he's our cultivator. He's our VPA cultivation, and he's the one that's truly the brainchild behind Synganics and this whole thought behind organic inputs with mineral salt programs blended together and delivering that through the drippers at a commercial level. Because historically, you'd have to hand water organics because there was such thick particles from the rock phosphates and the guanos and the stuff that would clog up your filters and the emitters. So Kevin's blended his own solutions, which we have a product called Mad Roots, the AgPro all-in-one, and this is a water-soluble micro that we can put through the lines, and there's not going to be any clogs.
So basically, I know there's so many nutrient companies out there, and I have been kind of looking at them, and but I don't understand. I know there's, different timing, and people
Yeah.
talk about the importance and the nuances of these different nutrients, and how you apply them and all that kind of stuff. So that's so super exciting, and I'm sure you all have all of yours are good, except, we're just growing in the industry and finding what, kind of dialing it in, I would assume. But would you say that your solution stands out because it's really treating an organic, regenerative type of grow? That would that make you stand out, or what's
Um,
making
I'll
your
put it this way.
stand out?
What the recipe is that we've curated, it's got more micros in the actual salts. So we have micronutrients inside of the flour, which allows us to not lose any sort of yield if we're reducing our base nutrient, which is the calcium nitrate. I don't want to get too far into the weeds, but the cool part is the salt program that we have is affordable. And it's also able to showcase at scale because we know that all the results that we post online, we're very transparent about it. It's like, you want these results at hitting 135 grams of square foot. Here's all the products that we use, and here's exactly how to use them at scale. So that's really special. And historically, there hasn't been a whole lot of um, cultivations that have been, outside of just being a sponsored cultivator. Hey, yeah, I use this nutrient. We're actually showing you every step along the way of how to use the program so you can be successful. And so the inoculations that go through the drippers and really and teaching cultivators how to do this, we invite them to our farm. Right, we do something called the Power Tour. So in the Connect community fashion, we invite cultivators and manufacturers. It's not open to the public, right? Because that could get a little messy, but cultivations that have applied for trial campaigns with us. We vet them out. We make sure that they're commercial operators. So we welcome them to the facility so they can walk it, see it, believe it. Nobody knows what 4 pounds of light looks like in a double stack until they see it. It's like, oh my goodness, that is extreme plant health. That's where the bud sites start to stack differently. You really start to pay attention to the little nuances along the way. So yes, we do host people at our facility because again, it goes back to Matt saying, I wish we had a showroom. Well, that's what we built is a showroom for cultivators and manufacturing partners that do want to validate to see if their products are commercially viable. And there's a cost associated to that because there's a lot of risk. So we are working with cultivation solutions that want to put it to trial with us because we know that we have a baseline with our curated menu of product solutions right now. So there's a bunch of different variables on what they can use to sponsor, whether it's lighting or amendments or nutrients, and there's different cost factors to that, specifically based on the risk factor. So that's what we're doing is showing people how to grow at our facility, and we do those probably every other month. And we bring people in, and we're doing a lot of pheno hunt tasting parties as well. So the new genetics that we're pheno hunting will come through and let us know what you think. And you saw how we talked about the science of smokability and how that applies to actual QC. That's what we do. We don't host competitions. We host the Battle Royale, which is a commercial validation QC process. So all the cultivators that participated in the event, it's a QC. It's a blind smoking competition, and that's really what we started to dive into was which cultivators have different techniques based on what their cultivation methodologies are to make it smoke. And
So, so I guess what exact services does PowrHouse offer? So, if somebody has a genetic that they want to test, or seed, I guess, a genetic or tissue culture, they would come to you to test it out, grow it out, and things like that. Are you also testing um, specific nutrient systems, or fertigation, or whatever? Is that part of it too? So, yeah, what?
exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, so PowrHouse as an R&D facility, we do test commercially viable products, and that's what people come to us to talk about. And this is really where, if somebody wants to try their nutrient line, okay, well, here's the baseline of what our current nutrient recipe does and how we, all the performance based on a double stack LED or a checkerboard HPS LED room. So these are the variables, and if it's commercially viable, we're going to showcase that with all the data that we present. And I'm not sure if you had a chance to check out the PowrHouse Instagram page by any chance? Did you see if we?
No.
No,
Um,
no worries. If I can, am I able to share my screen here, or is
let's see
because I
here.
want to?
Oh yeah, here. Let's see.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I would love to show you what the
Oh
what the
wait.
PowrHouse page looks like
Okay.
because this is going to make a little bit more sense here. Here, let me see here.
Oh,
Share
not,
desktop. I got
oh,
it.
oh, okay.
Can
So
you
just,
see my screen?
oh yes, I can. I don't know why this.
Okay, perfect. So on the PowrHouse page, I present our harvest reports. And this is what you saw as our backdrop at MJ BizCon was our harvest report for a double stack and the single tier checkerboard. So for example, this is the harvest report that we did for our September harvest in the double stack 55 lighter. So first I present there's 55 lights, 28 HPS, 27 LED, 120 under canopy, so on and so forth. All of the information that you want to know from the actual room itself. 60 days flower harvest. Now let's look at the actual results. So 821,000 total grams of wet weight converted into 104,000 total grams of trim to dry weight. So what does that equate to? 121 grams a square foot or 4.2 pounds per light. So we show everything in the sense of what products work. And on the backside, I built my own ERP to track all this stuff. So again, going back to my childhood, I grew up playing video games. So I love technology. I love to build software. So that was something that the industry didn't have available in terms of being able to get all of these different statistics. I needed to track the measurements a little bit differently. So at PowrHouse, we've developed a role called the Canalytics Administrator. And so that person is responsible for collecting the data, right? The production team and the facility, it's a fully functional commercial operation, 310 flowering lights. So we have a lot of things moving, right? We're doing that, but we're also collecting the data along the way. So I created my own ERP to track all these things. And so being able to display all of the different ratios of the bigs to smalls and the percentage of harvest per cultivar, what the planting density is, how many total plants equated to, and all of the different wet weights and how they translate into that. Again, this is going back to genetics. This is a genetics validation platform so we can showcase if you're growing the golden ticket, right, at 7.5 plants per light. We averaged 1,952 grams of wet weight per plant. The average plant height was 49 inches. And we turn on the under canopy at day 11, then we still averaged, X amount of dry weight for that golden ticket, which was uh, what was that? 4.4 pounds per light or 125 grams a square foot. So people can see this and say, oh, you guys are hitting crazy yield. I bet you're not growing candies. Actually, we are because candies have that traditional small bud trait. And that's something that the market wants in the bulk market is they want a lot of sweet profiles. And these sweeter profiles typically have a smaller bud trait, which translates to smaller yield. So unless you're driving a higher ticket price for those bulk pounds, what's the purpose of growing them? But you need to grow them, otherwise you're not going to get buyers to your shop. So transparency is key. Again, going back to the nursery days, and to answer your question, yeah, most nurseries should be doing validation. Do they though? We'll see, show me the results. Show us this level of detail so that I can invest into that genetic and grow it at scale rather than risking it, buying the clones and waiting 3 months later to see if it actually hit the metric points that I'm looking for. So in our system, right, we've got 4 different flowering rooms. They're all configured differently. Double stack LED, checkerboard, and that's the single tier where we have a HPS and LED light alternating. So that mixed spectrum brings out a super high terpene to cannabinoid ratio, which allows us to get that smokability on these genetics. This is, a big reason why we start to look at what genetics fit the program. It's more so these are the genetics that are commercially viable because our system doesn't change. Our irrigation strategy gets modified every day, and that's where Kevin Crouch is a master at irrigation strategy and environmental control, or the lack thereof. The lack of environmental control is what's creating this compression in the industry today for cultivators. They built their facilities, or maybe they acquired their facility for 50 to 70 grams a square foot, not 130 grams a square foot. So they can't control the environment when they start growing bigger plants. So this is where there's a lot of deficiency in the marketplace or quality deficiency because they can't control it. And so we rely on partners like Arroya to help us monitor our environment, our substrate, our runoff, all of the things that we do on a daily level is scientifically backed because we track. You cannot manage without measurement. So PowrHouse isn't just a showroom. It's an education source for cultivators that want to level up. So Kevin has shown the world at a very detailed level, not only by sharing his SOPs, but exactly how to do these things. That's why we welcome cultivators to us. So the business model behind PowrHouse is let us show you what works for us because this is success. This is what good looks like. And being able to show you the product solutions that you can purchase from a local hydro store that supports us, and they stock those products that come from Matt, right? You have to remember, Terra International is a massive distributor. So if they don't, if the local hydro store in New Jersey chooses not to stock these products, but the cultivator wants to learn and buy and bring in these products from us, we'll sell it directly to you from Power Supply. We'll drop ship directly from Terra out of California to that cultivator if the hydro store says, nah, I don't want to invest in those products because we don't have enough demand. No problem. We gave you a chance. So we'd be calling the hydro store, hey, XYZ cultivator wants to run the United Nutrients with all the amendments. Here's PowrHouse's recipe, and here's how to buy these products from Terra at a wholesale rate. And by the way, these are the best costs in the wholesale market. So if they choose to avoid bringing in and stocking the program, no problem. We'll work with them. We'll drop ship it directly to the cultivator with very aggressive shipping rates, and the product pricing is there because we're not trying to sell products, we're just offering the solutions.
Right. But also in addition to them buying this, you give them this, the data on how to actually grow the blueprint. Um,
Exactly.
but if they don't want, I'm sorry, I might have missed this. If they don't want to buy the nutrients, how can they well, it's really not, they can't really participate then or access this information, can they?
This is all online. I mean, you can go to
Okay.
our link in our bio, right in Instagram, and you can see all this information. So regardless of what products people are using, we're showing people what we do. And of course, there's other manufacturers or distributors that are saying, oh, okay, well, they've got that product. Well, we got something similar. Let's build our own program, which is great. What's that doing to the industry? It's leveling up. We're just
Right.
showing people how to use organics at scale with our curated recipe, with our product solutions. And so we implore people to try this. We want them to be able to produce better cannabis because at the end of the day, this is plant medicine. How do you become a consistent medicinal provider is if you have a program that allows you to grow without all these major deficiencies. And again, going back to my original statement about Kevin and how he views the plant, it's increasing plant health and immunity. How do you give it the most healthy start to give it all of these resistant challenges and building that immunity. So if the environment shifts or if there's a stressor from pathogens or pests, the plant's not going to fall back so far. It's going to take a small step back, not a massive step back compared to a cultivator that's just running synthetic salts.
Um, and so then, so that's for the nutrient side. And then for the testing breeders, seeds or, how does that work with your relationship? They come to you, they want you to test it out so that they can sell their seeds, prove that their seeds are going to be have vigor and yield and all that kind of stuff. Um,
Exactly.
and
And
pathogen free, because you're doing the meristem tissue testing versus the nodal. Is that correct?
yeah, so meristematic tissue culture. Right now, we collaborate with My Flora DNA out of Sacramento, and they've got some really cool tips and tricks up their sleeve. And they're going to be working with genomic editing, which is another conversation. But yeah, right now we're hunting with breeders that we respect because we trust their breeding stock. And we also, for example, Good Greens. Good Greens is my buddy Joe and Phil, and we've been working on a couple different breeding projects along past few years. And again, we're breeding with our own stuff. So we know what we started with, and we understand that there's certain selections and certain flavors that we're going for. And going back to like the first question is how do people participate if they're not using our nutrients or our amendments? The Connect Community landing page has what do we have right now? 58 videos since we started the YouTube channel, and there's so many panel discussions on the science of smokability, on synganics, on substrates and lighting and all sorts of fun stuff. So if you are a cultivator and you happen to stumble along our YouTube page, you're in for a treat because we have years of documented panel discussions from industry leaders on this page. And that's what's special about what you got to witness at the MJ BizCon. The Vault panel series was a culmination of some industry leaders getting together to share their knowledge and perspective. And that's what I pride myself on. I like to moderate these discussions because I have curiosity. I have genuine curiosity for their perspective because I'm now getting molded into my next evolution of who I am in this industry and how I can provide more value. I'm leveling up myself in these panels. That's why I love to do them. And it's really fun. And I don't know if you noticed, but I don't look at the audience when I'm moderating. I look at the panelists because I'm genuinely just having conversation with them. I don't have a PowerPoint presentation going through. I don't have notes. I'm just talking to these panelists because they have so much to offer.
So, and then, so now you also just put out a product into the marketplace, just flour? Is that what you're
Correct.
distributing
Yeah,
it
we're
at
we're
California?
launching. Yep, and we're launching in California here. Here, let me share my screen one more time because it's a moment for where is it at here? Let
Here
me
it
move
is.
this. All right. So we're launching with a half ounce bag. We're not playing around in the eighth market. That is a bloodbath in the California space. And I'm sure you've heard how a lot of the retailers are not paying their bills. So they're
It's
leveraging a lot of
happening
new
everywhere.
brands.
Yeah, it's happening everywhere, but California, it makes me sick what's happening there.
Yeah. So people that know who we are, and again, the name PowrHouse came about from Jason Rotremel. He's the brother of Sean at Your Highness, and he's got a really respected global brand called Broken Promises. They've scaled all around the world with their clothing company and their lifestyle brand. Now they have a company that's called Smoking Promises in the cannabis space, but they partner with Alien Labs and Connected to launch that as one of their house brands, which is super super complimentary. Like that is cool. So Jason and Mandy from Broken Promises were like, "Damn, you guys are a powerhouse, like you mentioned earlier. We all come from different verticals of the industry to provide these solutions." And I'm like, that's actually got a really cool ring to it. So I got to give them their flowers because they came up with the name. And it's truly an honor because like self-proclamation of something like the word powerhouse is, people could probably not feel so special about it, but understanding the narrative of who we are and what we're doing to help people, I truly believe we are a powerhouse because we're changing the way that people cultivate. We're changing the narrative behind how commercial cultivations can still drive quality at scale. And kudos to Kevin Crouch because he's proven that.
Yeah, and we also need standards. Like everybody's working in their own silos, in different states, and between the cultivators and the extractors, the manufacturers, you need to. I think that should be the next step with like manufacturers extracting.
Yeah,
There's so many nuances to that as well. So
for
anyway.
sure. And touching on like what we're doing a little bit differently, we're going after the smokers, right? That's why I'm only selling a half ounce for the time being. We really want people to get a good deal, affordable fire, right? You're going to get a really good deal on a half ounce of flour that we personally curate in QC, right? We have a whole, again, going back to the ERP, in order for my team members to get flour from every one of our batches that we harvest, we have a 2 week cycle, they have to fill out the QC form, which is exactly what we use judging at the battle royale. So smoke smokability is so important for us, and we want the consumer to have the same level of experience that we do at PowrHouse, which is why we're finally launching in retail. We're at a point of consistency where we can do so. Water activity is something I really want consumers to start to understand, right? People use water activity loosely in the terms of, oh, moisture content. No, this is not the same thing as moisture content. Moisture content is the overall water in the flower. Water activity is the unbound water in the flower, which equates to basically the smokability aspect. Higher water activity has been proven to deliver more flavor, higher terpenes. And shout out to Dr. Allison Justice and the CRC team. They've proven that higher water activity delivers more flavor through the scientific methodology of what their smoking experience has been with their topography machine and all the cool stuff that they did. I saw what they did earlier in the year, and I invited Allison out in April to join us on a panel discussion. It really triggered this whole science of smokability discussion, which has given me such a better appreciation of how to smoke, right? I've been smoking since I was a teenager, but I didn't really understand how to smoke and how a proper roll and a breakdown of that flower could actually impact the overall flavor and experience of that genetic. So what I'm looking at here is the water activity for each of the batches that's going to be put onto each of the bags. And then you can see the little sweet, fruity citrus wheel up top. This is going to help drive the experiential side of what people can expect. Fruit, floral, fuel, and earth, right? All these different things are going to be giving you a different experience. The nose knows. Dr. Jeremy Plum, a dear friend of mine, has always preached this, and he's got so much great articles out there on the science behind um, the aroma factors and how different genetic expressions drive different experiences. So we want to pass that information along to the consumer to understand, okay, the quality factor behind water activity. And now on our VDLs, the variable data labels, we're putting what room the flower came out of, which batch. Because why is that important? Like I mentioned earlier, the Power 2 checkerboard room, the LED and HPS, you're driving a whole different kind of light spectrum to that plant, which is driving a different type of cannabinoid to terpene ratio. This shit smokes. We love the flavor coming out of the checkerboard room. So that's another reason why we're wanting to give enough information for the consumer to ask questions. What the hell is water activity? Why does that even matter? And then Q in solutions, grove bags, right? They allow us to trap in the water activity that we take time to process and make sure that it's going to be delivered at the right ratio based on high trichome density. You want a higher level of water activity. The lower trichome density, you can go a little bit lower, and that's going to help control the burn of the ash and that structure of the ash. So the combustibility helps slow the burn and deliver flavor, smoothness.
Hmm. I actually missed that. I caught 1 second of the smokability panel, but I caught a couple others there. But so that's kind of interesting information about the water. And I noticed that you put terpene
Yeah.
percentages on there, which no one does. Um, I,
Right.
I mean,
And
I guess it costs a little bit extra to do that. Is that why? Oh, you have
if we're
CBD.
we're we're talking 25, 40, but like it's not an expense to be like, oh, it's way too expensive. No, no, no. We want to make sure that the consumer understands their endocannabinoid system, right? The top three terpenes are what drive that influential decision, right? I can tell you that this smells citrusy, but is it a terpinolene citrus or is it a limonene citrus?
Oh,
These
and
matter to me.
yeah, right. Okay, so you have not only the percentage, now I see you also put the exact terpenes that are in there.
Yeah, I think the top three terps are very important to make a purchasing decision. And again, going back to like 2020 when COVID stopped the purchasing in stores, because before we can crack a jar open, smell it, and you can understand the experience that you should be getting from it based off the aroma, or at least I could. And so being able to shop in that manner got cut off. So now we had to shop on percentages as a consumer. What does that mean? Well, that's where the bud tenders or the stores had to sell off the THC percentage. Not, I don't think it was, and this may be a blanket statement. I don't want to single them out, but just naturally, when you're shopping, higher is better, right? Your brain's going to tell you higher THC, better experience, better quality. We all know that's not true. So being able to give them something a little bit different to focus on with quality and experience, that's why we're honing in on water activity. And we're proud of this, being able to showcase the science behind smokability and
Yeah, I
why.
see. Okay, got it, got it, got it. And yeah, all that stuff. You're educating on everything that's on the back of that package. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And how to properly break down. And I'm a huge fan of the flour mill because it allows for a proper breakdown. And I put these two different screens on here because before traditional grinders, it ruptures the trichome head. You actually have a lot of grind volume loss, so you're losing material in that grinding process. What flour mill does is it breaks it down, and then I'll switch the screen to the number one extra fine to homogenize the flour. So if it goes through this process and I'm rolling it, and it doesn't smoke through this process, something happened. It's either a bad run or it's a bad genetic. And this allows me to scale, the selection process that much easier. And so using this whole methodology, we talk about the science of smokability, aroma, flavor transfer, combustion, ash color and structure, mouth coat, mouth stain, all of these factors that come into the overall selection process. And again, we're proud of what we're dropping in these bags because we know that it smokes because we track everything from batch to batch. We understand what Kevin's doing in the garden, right? He's making little tweaks and modifications to the recipe, and he's looking at all these reviews, not telling anybody what he's doing in the garden or these little manipulations, but he knows. So he's understanding how the science of smokability is going to be impacted at the end result. So we do take pride in how we do this so he can track and manage it effectively. And that's what I do. I help Kevin manage the data, right? He doesn't have time to be looking at spreadsheets and all sorts of stuff. We'll review it together. So that's where it's a nice little collaboration where I can help narrate the journey of what Kevin's doing. I love data. So the team is I'm really proud of them because everybody at PowrHouse holds a special role in the facility. We're a very small team, we're lean, and ultimately we're trying to control costs specifically because we have to understand that the cost of pound is going to continue to go down, or I'm sorry, we need to make it go down because the cost per pound or the sell price per pound is still decreasing. So at an operational level, that's why we continue to start to scale higher yields and better quality at that point.
Right, that seemed to be the name of the game too at MJ Biz was better yield, more yield, and grow. So yeah, kind of winding down. I just want to ask a couple questions 'cause wow, you've given us so much. So after California, you're launching a new brand. You're working with all the top California cultivators. I
Mhm.
mean, even in the country, obviously, because you're at the epicenter of where all that's happening. So what comes after California? What are you focusing on? Are you? I thought I spoke to someone on your team that said that you're also taking your Connect community panel discussions to other states. I think you were in Michigan doing that. So how is that going to happen? I'm thinking, hey, we're a bunch of great growers here in New York. You know, we've got some real OGs.
Yeah,
What
yeah. You're referring to the historian Anthony Jones has been with us in the Connect, and he was the first person that was front and center at our panel discussions at the brewery. He'd be sitting there with his camera phone recording these discussions, and always the first person to ask a question. I was like, "Damn, this guy's here all the time." He's like, "Anything I can do to help?" He's like, "I'm recording these. Do you want me to give you the video to post on YouTube?" I'm like, "Hell yeah! Like that's amazing." So
Oh, oh, yeah.
Anthony's super special. the Connect wouldn't be anywhere without Anthony. So that's really why, you know, his he's been cultivating for a long time as well. So his genuine curiosity for how to cultivate from the commercial level has been a really special thing. So Anthony has leveled up his production game. So everything you see is produced by Anthony. I'm just the narrator of what's happening. So what we've done is, yeah, we've taken the Connect all over the world already. We've been to Las Vegas, we've been to Michigan, we've been to Boston, we've been to Barcelona, we've been to Germany. It's going to continue to evolve. Right. So being able to do these Connect events all over the world in strategic areas. Yeah, New York's next. We'll probably get out there. We have, we're blessed to work with, really cool people that believe in the organics, the Synganics inputs methodology. So, Sherbinsky's got a project out in New York that we've been helping them out with, and it's really cool to be able to help bring out the genetic potential. And Mario's a legend, right? The breeder and the creator of gelato and Sunset Sherbet and like these real foundation cultivars. So to get Mario's blessing on, hey, you guys are doing some really cool work. Thank you, Mario. Like, yes, that means the world to us because we understand flavor and complexity, and the science of smokability is important because we can put these things into the next series of phenos that we're hunting and the next breeding projects that are intentional with these specific outlying uh, phenos that we're looking for, flavor profiles we're looking for to complete the charcuterie board of flavors.
Mm. So, just because maybe I just want to try to understand this process, and maybe some people listening don't haven't connected this either. But at the show, I know a lot of people were talking about seeds were better, because everybody has built their facility or used clones to cultivate. And now everybody's talking about seeds is the better way to go for a couple different reasons, for optimizing and not needing as much space and all that kind of stuff. And then being more uniform, which m many people didn't think. So, so where does the tissue culture process start it all, or do the seeds start it all? So if somebody said, "Hey, I have this what I think is like the OG, original seed, and I want to do some pheno hunting," um, do they give you the seed and then you t take that seed apart and produce the tissue culture? To How does that work?
Nope. Great question. So tissue culture is when you pop a pack of seeds, right? You're gonna find they're all sisters, not twins. So we're gonna find the best sister. That's the pheno that we're gonna bring into tissue culture. So once we grow it out, we assess it. Then we're
Uh,
gonna put it into the tissue culture bank. It's gonna get cleaned and remediated from any sort of pathogenic pressure that it may have accumulated along the way. And that's what happens when you do an initial pheno hunt, right? You're selecting based on whatever characteristics that you're looking for, and that's where it's really important to know who you're getting genetics from. Is what does your selection process look like? What is your actual intention? And was it grown in a commercial facility or was it grown in a hobbyist operation? Because you better believe that when you put a hobbyist selection into a commercial facility, weird stuff can happen. Hermaphroditism is the number one factor when we start to look at stable genetics. And every genetic is pretty much prone to herm out if you give it enough stress. And that's something that, a lot of the challenges that we've seen throughout the years of pheno hunting and making these selections is their commercial viability to herms. And part of the process of making sure that you do have a good selection, it's an investment, right? You're taking time to take that particular selection and putting it into tissue culture. And the nodal scrub is just a surface scrub, right? If you have pest pressure or something that, root aphids, for example, are tremendously horrible because there's not any products that actually are on the approved list of pesticides that will actually kill a root aphid. So major problems, that's where tissue culture comes into play. If you want to try to save or restart your genetics, hey, I've got this really good selection, but my mother room was infested with root aphids. We got to restart. Okay, cool. Let's take those snips, initiate them into the lab. They'll do the meristem dissection, regrow it from a clean cellular structure. So that's tissue culture in a nutshell. It's a savings account. It's going to clean and remediate, but it's also your bank, your storage. And again, starting from seeds, you made a statement about it's better to grow from seeds for a production facility. I don't necessarily agree with that narrative. It's more so we're looking for our own genetics to be special, right? We want to be able to find unique. That's why a lot of people are starting to rethink the way that they're going about their production facilities. We have to start pheno hunting again. right? Because everybody's got the LCGs, everybody's got the sweet candy profiles. Now it's time to find the iterations of those variants. I want an LCG with the twist, or I want a Skittles profile with the twist. I want OG Kush with the twist. That's all we're doing now. So a lot of the breeders that were at the seed vault are displaying that. There's so much great work out there. And being able to trust the breeders that you're buying seeds from, of course, right? There's some heavy hitters in that room at the seed vault, so it was very easy to get uh, a good bank of new gear, which we did. We invested into quite a bit of gear out there. It was great to see everybody together there. And so it was really special to see that culmination of heavy hitters. While there may not have been as many cultivators as prior years at the conference, we went there with intention, right? The heaviest hitters of the industry were still there, but the cultivation community wasn't, right? That's just a narrative of what's happening with the conference itself. So I don't want to say that the conference is on a decline, but I think it's just a state of the industry.
Yeah.
Cultivators can't make it anymore, right? So
Yeah.
what are they doing? If they don't have under canopy lighting or any sort of supplemental lighting, if they're not bringing in unique genetics to separate themselves out in the marketplace, if they're not growing with organics to help the smokability, for everybody can grow pretty weed, but does it actually smoke? Right.
Yeah.
That's what we specialize in. We're trying to help cultivators level their game up so we can still align and band together, because the better rising tides lift all ships, right? We want to make sure that we still have the cultivation community with us to continue to evolve, because the genetics world is never going to end. There's endless possibilities with genetics. So hopefully that helps clarify a little bit about how TC comes into the bank.
Yeah, yeah. It was just something I was learning at the show, and I just couldn't quite fit it, how it fit all together in the process. So yeah, that's amazing. So many other things I would love to talk to you about again. So that was really cool. Thank you.
Yeah.